Fails. Next docketed item, please.
Item number 50, number 7939, sub A.
Chairman Craven, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill comes to us from Representative Alzate, and the act would allow the Division of Motor Vehicles to issue driving privilege cards and driving privilege permits to applicants unable to establish their lawful presence in the United States. The driving privilege cards and driving privilege permits would not be valid for identification purposes. It's a good bill. I move passage.
Chairman Craven moves passage, seconded by Leader Blazejewski and many, many others. On the bill. On the bill. I'm sorry? Go ahead. Please state your point of order.
This is 13 years, and this is an important bill. I have noticed that throughout these days, people wanting to stand up and second a bill that is important to them, and it's not being allowed. I don't know if there's been a new rule established where we cannot, but the only one that is being mentioned in seconding any bills is Leader Blazejewski. While he may be number 2, I think anyone, and I'm requesting this respectfully, anyone who is willing, wishing, interested in seconding a bill moving forward, that they be allowed. This, for me, is an important bill, and I certainly would like to have it recorded in the records that I'm standing up here to second its passage.
Fair enough. I will endeavor on all bills to second them, but I just want everybody to know that will be a longer session. That's no disrespect to anyone on any bill. It's trying to move things along. So the bill's been moved. I will now ask for seconds on this very important bill. So everybody who wants a second, please stand. Leader, I've already got you, so you don't have to stand. So I will start, and I will start with Representative Carson, Representative Speakman, Representative Donovan, Chairman Abney, Representative Amore, Representative Henrys, Representative Caldwell, Representative Morales, Chairwoman McEntee, Chairwoman Ruggiero, Chairwoman Williams, Representative Batista, Representative Perez, Representative Agello, Representative Handy, Chairwoman Fogarty, Representative Cortravan, Representative Kislak, Chairman Hull, Representative Lombardi, Representative Tanzi, Representative McNamara, Representative Kazar, Chairwoman Diaz, Representative Slater, Floor Manager Edwards, Chairman Bennett, Representative Giraldo, Whip Kazarian, Representative Felix, Representative Alzate, Representative Potter, Representative Barrows, and Representative McGaugh, all seconding. Any other seconds? On the bill to speak, Representative Morales. I got a lot of lights, so we'll go through them. Representative Morales, you were the first light I ever saw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, I rise in strong support of this legislation because this is about ensuring that every single individual and person in our state has the opportunity to earn a driving card, register for auto insurance, and live with a sense of security when they are driving on the road. This is about codifying the basic ability and necessity to drive, as it is something that all of us would consider to be a contemporary form of a human right. And as we know, the ability to drive is absolutely critical in one's daily life. Whether you are visiting the grocery store, attending a medical appointment, going to work, accessing basic needs such as the laundromat, or taking your child to school. Simply put, the right for one to drive creates opportunity, especially those who are the most vulnerable within our communities. In the words of the president of the Rhode Island State Council of Churches, and I quote, "Mobility not only has its economic and social benefits, but it provides for a sense of dignity and self-worth. Permitting our undocumented neighbors to become more self-reliant is a recognition of their dignity." And I, for one, can attest for this, because growing up, I saw far too often too many of my family friends, too many of my neighbors who would take the risk of literally hitchhiking to work or be forced to go on a 2-hour bus ride followed by a half-hour walk just to get to their place of work on a daily basis. And despite having the ability and the knowledge to drive, they refused to do so. They refused to do so because they didn't want to put their safety at risk, the risk of others, but most importantly, they did not want to find themselves in a position where they would be deported from their family. And so with that said, I want to be clear to everyone what the reality is within our state. The reality is that Rhode Island is home to thousands of undocumented people across all of our communities, from the urban core to some of our more rural areas. And they are here whether or not you are fully aware. In other words, undocumented people are active members of our community. Undocumented people are humans with jobs, humans with families. In fact, they pay taxes just like the rest of us. Specifically, over $30 million in taxes on an annual basis as it relates to an income tax, property taxes, and sales taxes. In fact, the main difference that exists between all of us in this chamber and an undocumented individual is simply the geographic location of where we were born and one's eligibility to vote. So all that to say, this legislation is primarily a moral issue. And while I will not go into all of the details, this is also a question about public safety. Because in between the 17 states that have already enacted this law, where the sky didn't come falling down after they did it, they have found that automobile accidents have significantly been reduced, and there's a higher rate of drivers who are insured. So colleagues, as you consider your vote on this issue, please note this is not an issue that should be based on political ideology or the perceived notion that one would have of these hardworking individuals that you likely do not even know. Instead, this is a question about whether or not working people deserve to live with dignity. And I urge all of our colleagues to vote yes. And at the same time, I also want to thank Chairwoman Williams for helping us get here, for ensuring that we are finally here. Because for over a dozen years, she has been tirelessly fighting for the needs of our communities as it relates to this specific piece of legislation. And I can say with confidence that had it not been for her advocacy, we would not be here. But now we are, and we are in a position
30
to,
seconds, please.
codify the human right to be able to operate a motor vehicle here in the state of Rhode Island. And I look forward to working together to ensure that we pass it, ensure that we are keeping our roads safe, but most importantly, ensure that every member of our community can live with dignity, because we deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Perez, please.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise in strong support to the bill, and I want to thank you for you allowing that bill to come through the floor, and at the same time, thank Rep. Williams, because I know the hard work that she put many years to finally we get here where we are. It was about time. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Morgan, please.
Thank you, Speaker. I have a question.
Proceed.
In the bill, it says the front and the back shall look identical to anyone who has legal residency, but that it can't then be used for voting. And I want to know how election officials will know that it's a driver privilege card that doesn't bestow voting privileges. There has to be something that marks it, something that makes it clear to voting officials that this person is not eligible to vote.
Chairman Craven will answer your question.
Thank you. Thanks, Representative Morgan, for the question. As I understand it, my license is like everyone else's, has a little barcode at the back of it. And that barcode is scanned when I go to vote. These, I'm not going to call them licenses. These
Driving
permits
privileges.
are not going to have that bar scan at the back of it.
Okay, so they are going to be coded as not eligible for voting.
Well, I won't use the word coded. I'm just going to say they don't have that barcode that would allow admission into the voting system.
All right. I mean, one of the things that I think people in the illegal immigrant community don't understand is that if they vote, then they can later be refused the ability to apply for citizenship. And so giving them something that is identical and would still allow them to vote is really against their best interests.
Well, in response to that specific thing, just so that I can make sure that I'm clear not only to your question but to the rest of the body, the most important part of a license in voting is that barcode, and these permits won't have that.
Are you sure? Because it says the front and the back must be identical. In the bill, it says identical. It doesn't say that they will lack the barcode for voting privileges. It doesn't say anything about that at all.
It won't have a barcode on it. And it won't have a barcode that could be used in that manner. So I'm telling you, the identical use of that word, the word identical is misinterpreted by you as saying somehow this is a device, this is a permit that you could show someone and pass it off as being something other than exactly what this bill allows. That will not be the case.
Identical is a word. Identical means identical. I mean, it's hard to really interpret it as anything other than what the word means. And
It's going to look like a
it
license.
says identical. It doesn't say that it will be, that these license plates will be coded or somehow made, have a marking or a difference on them that makes voting impossible. It just doesn't.
Well, the legislation
It's a flaw in the bill.
The legislation is very clear that it is not allowed to be used to vote.
It says it, but
And so in that
practically, how
sense-
do voting officials know? Mind readers?
Because it won't have that barcode, and it'll be clear to the election officials when they see it.
Okay, it's not in the bill.
I disagree, but thank you.
Well, can you point me to where it is in the bill then?
You're misinterpreting, you're overinterpreting the word identical. It's not.
Identical is a word. It means identical.
I understand what it
means. It
means.
means the same.
But if the legislation clearly says you can't use it to vote, then they wouldn't put a device in it that would allow you to vote. So
1 minute.
they won't put that barcode in that will mislead.
If it looks the same,
It's got to
if
be
it's
able to go through the
identical,
barcode and be.
I'm not sure that voting officials would know unless there is some difference. And that's not what the bill says.
They use that barcode
Thank
to
you.
swipe, just like we do for many things.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Giraldo, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and House colleagues. Let me start off by, of course, urging everyone to vote yes on the Safe Streets legislation. And while I cannot even begin to express how important this bill is for hardworking families in my district and across the state, I want everyone to know that this bill, to me, represents more than just driving privileges. We know from other states that passing this type of legislation will lead to numerous benefits: a reduction of hit-and-run accidents, a boom in insured drivers, insurance costs will be reduced for all Rhode Islanders, lower traffic fatalities, and a lower cost of car insurance. But just as important as those things, I want to remind us all that there are real people in each one of our districts that this will impact. These driving privilege cards enables fathers to get better jobs to provide for their families, a mother to take their child to school or the doctor's office, and it allows our friends and neighbors to live and drive in a way that is safe, responsible, and, as Rep. Morales said, with dignity. Therefore, this is and has been a major priority of the Black and Latino caucus, and I'm happy to see this come to the floor. I know this bill has been decades in the making, and I want to thank everyone that played a role in bringing this to the floor today, including Rep. Alzate, Chairwoman Williams, and Speaker for having this here today. Again, I thank you and ask everyone to join me in voting for this bill.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Quattrochi, please, on the bill.
Thank you, Speaker. Question for the chairman.
He will yield.
So, regardless of being able to have a identifying mark or a code or whatever it is on licenses to distinguish between the two, that's only going to be picked up if someone tries to vote in person illegally, right?
Well, I think you still have to show identification when you get an absentee ballot or a paper ballot pre-voting, so to speak, like we did a couple of years ago. You still got to show an ID.
Well, right now, our current system at the DMV automatically registers people to vote who have license when you go get a license. Are we set up now? Are our computer systems set up to distinguish between the two?
Yes.
They are
Yes.
absolutely set up
Absolutely.
to distinguish. Okay. And let's thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'll be voting against this bill. On page 3, let's see. Scratch that. I already addressed that. Page 4, line 2 and 4. It shall be a violation of Chapter 112, Title 42, to discriminate against any individual solely on the ground that they hold or present a driving privilege card or permit under this section. Actually, could I ask a question again?
I'm sure the chairman will yield, and he's already standing, so he will
Thank you
yield.
very much. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
So, from what I read right here, by me just being against this, if I spoke out against it because I feel it's wrong, am I violating this chapter?
You're doing your job as a legislator.
Okay.
You're asking questions
So who
about
does
a
this
bill.
apply to? This?
This would be if somebody chose not to take it for purposes of identification for whatever purposes, other than those purposes that are specifically not allowed. Can't be used as a federal ID, but if you went to show your ID at a liquor store, they would have to accept that as an ID.
What happens if the person that owns a liquor store feels that it's wrong?
Well, then they would be discriminating.
Okay. So that's kind of like the bakery people that didn't want to bake the cake in Colorado. Same type of situation, right?
It's a worthy analogy, yes.
Yeah. And they won that case.
They did.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
We have a serious breach of our southern border in this country. It's no secret. We all know it. Millions flooding in. This bill only encourages and exacerbates the invasion of our southern border, and I think we are doing a serious injustice by passing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Alzate, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in strong support of this legislation. And first and foremost, I would be remiss if I did not say thank you to Chairwoman Williams for championing this legislation for as long as she has and continues to do and continues to fight for the community, for our undocumented community. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of the work that you've done around this legislation and for allowing the caucus to take this and finish it right over the finish line. So thank you to you and all of your hard work that you have done for this legislation and so many others that have come before me to make sure that our undocumented community feels like they are humans and they are respected in this state. I wanted to clear something up. This legislation is, if you are an undocumented person, that means a lot of things. That does not necessarily mean that you came over the border, as some people would say, and you overstayed or you're here. This means that people who maybe are coming from another country and they are being sponsored by their employer, that person is undocumented, but they have a working visa. This would allow them to obtain a driver's license depending however long they're going to be in Rhode Island working. This also allows for our undocumented community that we see so many up at the gallery who have an ITIN number, which is a taxpayer ID. These people are hardworking people. Some of them could be in limbo waiting for immigration to provide them with some legal status. So this is a medium to help with that. So this is not about people who are coming over undocumented, making sure that we are giving them whatever it is that people believe that they are doing. These are hardworking, undocumented people who are trying to take care of their families, who we want to make sure that they are insured, because unfortunately, Rhode Islanders, we are maybe not the best drivers in the country. And when we get into an accident, we want to make sure that the other person's insured, whether they're undocumented or not. You wouldn't know that. And so if you get into an accident, which I know that we have had some legislators who have experienced this, they have gone into accidents with people who have been undocumented and they have not had insurance. That's a hit to us Rhode Islanders who are insured. So this legislation will allow that. I really want to stress the fact that people who this legislation is really going to benefit is going to be people who are taxpayers. Our undocumented community brings in roughly $31 million in revenue. Our insurance rates are going to go down because more people are going to be insured. You have to be insured in order to obtain one of these privileges, one of these driver's privilege cards. You have to show where you live. This is not anybody can just go in there. This legislation it's going to help so many people. And a lot of the people who already obtain these ITIN, these taxpayer identification IDs are people who are working. They work in our restaurants. I'm sure some of them work in our state house. Some of them clean our streets. Some of them are working in our schools, but you would never know because we just don't talk about it. We go about our day. All we want to do is make sure that we are able to get to and from work, take our kids, to activities and not have to worry whether or not our parent is going to be detained or not. In 2006, my dad was detained by ICE when I was in high school. And it was my senior year in high school, and he was detained for 10 months. When he got out, he was out for 6 years. And for 2 years, Rhode Island still allowed people who are undocumented to obtain these licenses. After that, my dad couldn't get one anymore. And my sister and I were in college and we were both working and he had to work because reality was my sister and I could not support the three of us on just like part-time salaries. So for 6 years before my dad was deported, he drove without anything. And every day my sister and I would try. If we had to go somewhere, she and I would drive. We would make sure that she and I were the ones that were driving.
30 seconds, please.
But my dad was the one who liked to drive. So this really helps children like me, American-born citizens with undocumented parents who really just want to try to give their children a better life and work and pay their bills. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I would ask for decorum, please. I'd ask for decorum, please. I know this is a important issue, but I'm trying to maintain consistency for everybody on every issue. I got many lights, so we'll just go. Chairwoman Diaz, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am standing in strong support to this legislation. It means a lot for my personal experience and for so many people in the state of Rhode Island. First of all, I want to make some clarification. In order to vote, any of us has to be a citizen first, and second, registered to vote. Those two steps you have to go through in order to have a right to present your driver's license at the moment of voting. So you're not complying with those steps, you're not able to go there and say, I want to vote. That's all I want to say at the beginning. Secondly, I want to honor in the history of this bill, because today we are right to this moment, as David Morales mentioned, because this is the right moment with the right leadership. But before that, in 1990 and the 90s, Here was a state representative, no minority, no black or Latino. He was Thomas Slater, the late state rep Thomas Slater. And he understood the importance of helping undocumented residents to have access to driver license. We provide opportunity for job and also provide safety for everyone in Rhode Island, not just for undocumented people. Secondly, after I was elected, he passed the bill to me. During that time, many legislators and senators get together and spoke with Governor Cashieri, and Cashieri, governor, Republican governor, he granted access to driver license. And all undocumented individuals who got driver license enjoy that privilege for around 5 to 10 years. At some point, the policy lost, and that opportunity was not available. And then we, as a legislator advocating for this issue, we went through a lot of fires, a lot of controversy, and we couldn't move that. But we have a leader in this room who took over with the skill and ability to advocate from the heart and all the knowledge she accumulated from that time. And that was our dear Chairwoman Williams, who I appreciate that all the work we had done through the years brought us to here. And I'm so pleased to witness this moment, to telling my friends in the gallery that it's a time for justice, and I'm pleased and happy to be part of this. Thank you.
No, I'm going to ask. I don't want to clear the galleries. I don't want to clear the galleries, but I will. I did it for the gun debate. I'm going to do it again. We must maintain decorum. Please. Representative Carson, please.
Speaker, I lost the part of the bill I wanted to speak to. Can you come back to me, please?
Sure. Representative Kazar, please.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise in strong support of this bill, and I echo my colleagues' comments of gratitude for everyone who has worked extremely hard over the years on this legislation that really is about human dignity first. It's critical to understand that we all know this, but I'm just going to say it again. We are a country and state of immigrants, whether by force or by choice. And all of us, every single person, deserves the dignity that comes with being able to hold down a job, being able to have economic opportunity and educational opportunity. And having the driver privilege card will take a step to do just that. And it's not easy. It's not easy for the individuals who are in need of these cards to have to come and continuously year after year to advocate. So besides the folks in this chamber and the folks who came before us in this chamber who have worked on this, I also want to say an absolutely huge thank you to all of the people, all of the advocates who come. This is an intimidating place for any of us, but it's an especially intimidating place for individuals who are undocumented. So my heart goes out to everyone who has stepped into this space and advocated so strongly. So I think I just want to come back to the issue of how important this is from an economic point of view. We are a stronger state with people who are able to feel safe and comfortable coming to all of our communities and living within all of our communities. It is not just Providence, Central Falls, Pawtucket that has residents who need these driver privilege cards. It includes communities like Barrington and East Providence and Riverside, where my residents reside. And I'm just very grateful that we've made this progress. I urge you to support it. And I also, on the last piece, want to really emphasize that this is a public safety bill. Our roads are safer. I think that is absolutely critical, and I'm just grateful that we've gotten it this far. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative McLaughlin, please, on the bill.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I'm very torn on this bill. and I'm speaking from the heart. I have people I represent in my district in Central Falls. They're hardworking, they're decent people. And I look and I say, do I like what's happening at the border? No, okay? Undocumented people, there are undocumented people that are here, and I look, and I'm trying to weigh the human side, and I'm saying, every morning I see these two guys where I live. There's a junkyard way up on a hill, okay? And they pedal their bikes up there every single morning, okay? Just to get to work. And I'm like, I'm not a federal judge. I'm not gonna decide who's legal and who's illegal, or who should be able to stay in this country, okay? A lot of them are claiming sanctuary status. Well, if that's the case, they will remain here. But if they present a problem, they're gonna go back to their countries. So with that said, just out of human compassion, I have to vote, okay, to give these people at least a permit to get back and forth to work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative. Representative, Speaker Tempore Kennedy, please.
Thank you. If the floor manager would answer a question through you, Mr. Speaker.
The chairman will.
Thank you. Chairman Craven, as I'm reading through this particular act, I'm a little bit, I look on page 2, lines 13 through 14, and it references driver privilege card. It must be identical in appearance to a driver's license or permit, but not a real ID. So I understand that concept. As I scroll through on page 7, on line 25, it shows Rhode Island identification card. Page 10, line 23, shows identification card. Where is the language, since this driver's privilege card must be identical to a driver's license, where is the language in the act that actually spells out that the word license comes out on that card and has to be replaced by the word privilege card? Because I'm not finding it in here. That would be my first question. The second...
You want me to do them one at a time?
Yes. So, well, actually, let me ask my second one, and then I'll sit down. When, over the years, we had a very big problem tracking insurance in the state of Rhode Island. And it wasn't until we enacted a piece of legislation that I put through for a number of years ago that we now have the ability. We signed a contract with a company, I believe out of North Carolina. They have been tracking all of the insurance information that goes in. I want to make sure, since everyone has said that this is going to bring insurance costs down, and by the way, since mandatory insurance went into effect, it hasn't brought the insurance costs down at all in the state of Rhode Island. The insurance companies make the argument that it's actually caused more accidents because more people are insured, so our rates have actually gone up. I want to make sure that today, if I cancel my insurance policy and go to another insurance company, the day I cancel it, it shows up in this database that's maintained by this company that was hired by the DMV. The DMV then gets that information, and unless there is a corresponding purchase of auto insurance with another company, I get a notice in the mail telling me, you no longer have insurance unless you can produce evidence your driver's privilege or your ability to drive in the state of Rhode Island will be canceled because under the mandatory insurance law, you need to have that insurance. So I want to know, is there a similar provision in this bill that says that if an individual who has a driver privilege card also has to have their insurance policies tracked the same way? Because if not, we're going to be back to what we had before. People purchased insurance. As soon as they renewed their license, or in this case, a driver's permit, they cancel it, and unless there's a corresponding way to track it, we're going to have people driving around with a driver's privilege card, but without the insurance.
Would you agree with me that this bill makes clear that in order to be able to get this permit, you must have insurance.
Yes.
So that in and of itself means that the Division of Motor Vehicles will track this like they track any other license that has been given to me or you, where we have to show up and give the company's name, the policy number, and the effective dates. They put that into the computer, and if we drop off, say, after the first month's payment or the first couple of months' payment, or for whatever reason, we get a notice of violation that our license is, we get a date that if you don't show proof of insurance, your license will be suspended on the state. You show up at traffic tribunal, you give them a copy of the card to show that it was in effect, or in some instances, you go and buy the insurance or renew it again, and then they give you a break. So that's where
30
the
seconds,
guarantee
please.
of insurance comes from. The other question you had was the identical issue. The barcode, for example, on the back that allows my license to be coded in order to give me an opportunity to vote, these permits will not have that on there. It won't be able to be swiped because if you recall, when you go to the voting place.
But that's the problem. The language right now says it must be identical in appearance to a driver's license, except it cannot be a real ID. So that's the one thing that I'm concerned about right now, is if it has to be identical, but yet you're telling me it's not going to be identical because the barcode's not going to be there.
I think
then
you're really getting
maybe
caught
a
up
semantics problem
on the
language.
semantics of the word identical.
Close to time, please.
It's clear that you can't vote with one of these licenses. That's painfully clear. So to say we're going to have the identical, like my license is, which allows me to vote, would be, contrary to the essence of the restrictions in this new permit. So I believe that legally, I put the lawyer hat on, that will not allow someone to vote.
Chairman, time, please. Representative Morgan, please, for the second time.
Thank you, Speaker. If you come here, let me start again. If you ask for permission and go through a process and are given permission to come to the United States, you're able to get a driver's license. This bill is not about human dignity. It's about whether you come here legally or illegally. Of course, people who are here illegally are good workers. They're good people. But they haven't come with permission, and that's the problem. I think many of us have parents. I know I have a parent who immigrated from England. She was able to drive, but she wasn't able to vote. She had those privileges. And it is about your immigration status. This is not about human dignity. It's not about whether you're a good person or not. It is about whether you came here with permission or not. If you come here with permission, you get the privileges. We as a country have a right to have borders and to say who may come and who may not. And it may be inconvenient for the people who come across the border without permission. But that should be a reason for them to do it the right way, for them to request permission to immigrate to the United States, to go through the process. The United States has always welcomed people from all around the country who have asked for that permission first. We have granted millions and millions and millions of people to come here legally. But that's where it stops. We do have we have a crisis at our southern border right now. and this will exacerbate it. And it is not about human dignity. It is about immigration status. I want people to come legally. I do not want them to sneak over the border. I will be voting against this because one is identical means identical, and that's a flaw in this bill. And secondly, it is about immigration status, and I don't think we should be rewarding people who don't ask for permission first.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Potter, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of the bill, and I just want to say briefly that when we hear the rhetoric that surrounds debates like this, where we refer to neighbors and people that live in our communities as things like illegal aliens, it's disappointing and it's disheartening because it's dehumanizing. I would like all of our colleagues just to be reminded that these are human beings who we are speaking of, and they deserve the same dignity and respect as everyone else. Our policy for public safety does not have to be punitive, and it does not have to be cruel. And in fact, when it is, it's counterproductive to the goals of public safety. This bill is long overdue. I am especially proud to be here to support it, and I want to echo our colleagues' earlier sentiments to commend everyone who was part of making this happen, from Chairwoman Williams all the way to yourself, Mr. Speaker. It's really about time, and I'm very proud to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Felix, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll be brief. I just want to say, first and foremost, Congress has plenary powers over immigration matters, which means that the state, our state, Rhode Island, cannot grant someone immigration status. This bill does not grant, contrary to what my colleague Rep. Morgan has mentioned, this bill does not grant folks status. What it does is that it grants people a driving privilege to allow them to drive in this state. The other thing that I would like to say is that, also contrary to what has been said on this floor, not all immigration categories grant someone the right to drive. So again, not every single person that is able to come into the country with documents is able to drive. There are refugees, there's asylees, there's DACA recipients, there's persons with visa, business. There's a whole slew of folks who are able to come here who are also not able to drive. So I just want to make that clear for the record for those who are not familiar with immigration law. And to say also, this is something that our community has had in the past. This is nothing new that we are doing. This is something that we are continuing. And again, why is it a problem in terms of granting folks the ability to drive, to make it to work, to make it to school, to be able to provide for their families? We all complain about the high rates of insurance in our state. We also complain about the accidents and people not having insurance. With this bill, we are allowing folks to drive, but also being able to get the insurance that they need, the certification that they all need to be able to do all those things. So I really urge my colleagues to vote in support of this legislation and to really help our communities be able to have fulfilling lives and be able to continue with their lives. So I really appreciate the support.
Thank you. Chairwoman Vella Wilkinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in passionate support of this bill. It's been said a few times already, the focus, the focus of this bill is public safety, which is, of course, the realm of this House and this General Assembly. The fact of the matter is that we all know that our public transit is exceptionally inadequate. And what we're doing now is we are forcing people that are unable to drive because they don't have a driving permit to only accept employment on a bus line, which might not be the best use of the individual's skills and talents. I get so tired of hearing people complain and lament, why is it that the undocumented get all of these benefits? Why are they getting health care? Why are they having access to so many services that the seniors aren't getting, or the veterans aren't getting, or whoever else isn't getting? You can't have it both ways. You're going to tie their hands and prevent them from earning a good living, and then penalize them and say, well, we do have a way that we can allow them to drive, but we're not going to do it. I don't understand why this is so controversial. It's not providing anything other than giving these men and women, hardworking men and women, the ability to travel by a vehicle, to transport their families by a vehicle, as opposed to being tied to public transportation. I mean, I'm coming from the state of New York, where rapid transportation is no joke. But Rhode Island, we don't have anything even approximating rapid transportation. We don't even have a decent transit system, with so many of our own communities that don't have bus service to them. There are so many jobs that we have that is offered by the industrial parks that are scattered throughout the state, that these men and women are precluded from accessing. And it just isn't fair, ladies and gentlemen. I feel that, again, this is a public safety. It's going to make our drivers, our pedestrians, our law enforcement officers much safer. The states that have enacted this type of a permit saw an immediate reduction from the hit-and-run accidents and crashes that occur. That's certainly going to make all of our constituents a lot safer. And I would ask you to just search your heart, do the right thing. This is the right thing, and it's taken long enough for it to come across our desks for a floor vote. Let's not hesitate. Let's take care of the residents of Rhode Island. And for those of you who say, well, my constituents wouldn't have it in my district, let me please remind you, this is the General Assembly, and your constituents go from end to end of the state of Rhode Island, not just the community in which you live in. Don't be confused by thinking that your constituents are only the people that can vote for you. Everyone in the state of Rhode Island is your constituent. Let's do the right thing by them. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Representative Rangel Bassel, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to do two things, Mr. Speaker. One, I want to first end in strong support of this piece of legislation. No one can legislate compassion. As much as we legislate in this room, we can't legislate compassion. This bill is about compassion, and it's also about human dignity. I also want to say that God didn't create anyone illegal. None of us is illegal. So I stand in strong support of this bill and ask my colleagues to join me. Then, Mr. Speaker, I want to do some affirmations, not affirmations, do affirmatives.
Let's wait. This is a.
Should I wait?
Yeah, wait. We'll do that at the end. I have lots of lights lit, and people want to speak. This is a very important issue, and I appreciate this. But if you want to speak about the specifics of the bill, you have 3.5 minutes left. If you don't, I want to go. I've got 6 lights in front of me right now, but it keeps getting more.
I agree, and I am going to take my seat. We cannot legislate compassion, and no one, God didn't make anyone illegal. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you very much. Representative Batista, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So much of what I hope to say has already been said, but I hope just to make a couple of quick points. Today is a historic day, and I am so grateful to everyone who had a part in this, not just the people who are in the chamber today, the legislators and the folks in the chamber, but for legislators who've been here in the past. I remember this bill or versions of this bill coming up as early as 10 years ago when I was still a student in law school. Representative Diaz would invite me to come and testify, and we would hear a story in 2012 about why it didn't pass, and in 2014 about why it didn't pass, and in 2016, and in 2018, and 2020. Finally, in 2022, we can say that this law is going to become law. This bill is going to become law. I appreciate you for your leadership, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate Chairwoman Williams for everything you've done for the community, Representative Diaz, who is a giant in our community, and last but not least, I don't see her, but the Chairwoman of the Black and Latino Caucus who's sponsoring the bill today. About 90 years ago, Justice Louis Brandeis said one of the most famous sentences in American jurisprudence: the states are the laboratories of democracy. And while we have one federal government that our government rests on and one Supreme Court, the states are reserved all other issues that the federal government cannot speak on. While we cannot write federal law, while it is not our fault that immigration has become a political football that has not been addressed, we in Rhode Island can decide how we treat our brothers and sisters in the undocumented community. Not aliens, not illegals, brothers and sisters, neighbors, friends, mentors, taxpayers, human beings. I don't want to get anybody in the gallery in trouble, and so we're hoping for not to have any more applause, but if I can take the last 10 seconds to address so many of the people up here in the gallery who have fought for so long for this dignity. A veces, la lucha es difícil y larga, pero hoy es prueba de que sí se puede y sí se pudo. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, please, no clapping. Chairman Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A question for the floor manager?
He will yield.
Thank you, Chairman Craven.
Thank you, Chairman.
If you're driving in your automobile and you're negligently struck by another vehicle, would you prefer that that person have insurance or not have insurance?
I would prefer that they have insurance.
All right. And if you only have liability insurance on your vehicle and the other car doesn't have any insurance, who will ultimately pay for those damages?
Me.
Okay. And will this bill lead to more people having insurance?
Yes.
Thank you.
And if I can put the cherry on top of the ice cream, the insurance industry came here in spades and said, we really want this. It's important to us in that it creates more business, obviously, but it also doesn't require that what you have and I have, I'm sure you have it, uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. It doesn't trigger that as often because uninsured motorist coverage, folks illegally driving a vehicle without insurance, they hit me, I got to pay, and the insurance company ends up paying. They don't want that to happen either. So it's good for business all the way around.
Thank you.
Representative Tienzi, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too rise in strong support for this bill, and I think anyone who thinks that this isn't something that's happening in their own communities isn't really paying that close attention, because this is a statewide issue. First and foremost, though, it is a national issue, and I personally don't feel that we have much of a immigration policy in the United States. I think it's something that's been too volatile for our folks in Congress to want to deal with, to even be able to come up with something to be able to allow for the types of immigrants that my father and other reps who have spoken about their parents coming legally were able to enjoy. I was just looking up on USA Facts. It's the census data. And I was looking at the number over time of people who have done this the right way, who've done it legally, who've come over. And the numbers have dropped precipitously. I think anybody who's given this a little bit of thought has seen that and understood that. The number of naturalizations in 2000, 886,000. Then the high point was 2008, around 1 million. And we're down, the last year that was reported was 240,000 in 2019. So we have not had a pathway to people wanting to come into our nation. There's no shortage of people. It's not like there isn't the demand. We just haven't been letting them in. So a lot of people are here out of desperation. A lot of people are here for bettering their lives and those of their children. Even the number of green cards. Back in 1991, we had 1.8 million green cards. That went down to 1.1 million in 2009. And in 2020, only 707,000. So this bill allows for all undocumented people to get those licenses. So those people who are awaiting their papers, those people who are here for the betterment of their family, those people who are here as refugees, awaiting the opportunity to become an American. And it is a matter of dignity. It truly is. And my seatmate, I think, exemplified that in his example. These are hardworking individuals who really want the ability to travel among us and to be able to drive their children to school and all the things that other people have said. And I think they deserve it. It does make our streets safer. And the closing thought that I will add to this is that in 2000, I moved here from Utah. I moved from the reddest state in the nation to what's considered to be the bluest state in the nation. And 22 years ago now, Utah had the license and the driving privilege for undocumented individuals. 22 years ago, the reddest of red states saw the necessity, saw the dignity, and granted that. And it is an honor today to be able to bring that to our to our residents within our state today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Quattrochi for the second time, please.
Thank you, Speaker. I would like it understood that I hold no animosity towards folks that want to come to this country to better their lives and their children's lives. My mom came here legally from Italy. My wife came here legally from the Azores. My daughter is half Colombian, so I have a deep appreciation for different cultures and languages and food. But if anything, my animosity is towards governments that are doing what we're doing here now, passing laws that are encouraging people to come here, and you can put any fluffy word you want on it, undocumented. It's illegal. You're coming here illegally. And essentially what it amounts to is that we have government-sanctioned human trafficking going on. You come over our borders illegally, you're being put on buses or trains or planes or whatever, and being shipped to states. That's human trafficking. Another fluffy word is the word card. It's a license. So everything is said that needs to be said right in the description of this bill. This act would allow the Division of Motor Vehicles to issue driving privilege cards. Then in the second line it says, to applicants unable to establish their lawful presence. So we are rewarding unlawful behavior with a privilege. Bottom line, says it right there in the description. Thank you.
Thank you. Leader Filippi, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll start off by saying that you should not be able to come to this country illegally. What's going on? Hold on, I'm sorry. Should have done that first.
It's okay.
It's a national shame, our immigration policy. Both parties are at fault. It's gone on forever. We do not have a sealed border. It's porous. We do not have the rule of law. It breeds contempt for the law, our national immigration policy. We have laws that are being broken every day because of the ineptitude of our federal government. But our question as a state is, how do we respond? And I've really struggled with this issue. I don't want a class of people that's an underclass in our society. I don't want people living in the shadows. I'm upset that we're here debating this because of the failure of our federal government to have a rational immigration policy and make sure that everyone is here pursuant to law. Maybe we need more visas. I think we do. I don't want people to be here illegally. I don't want people living in the shadows. I don't want people taking off when a cop tries to pull them over because they think they're about to be deported. I'm friends with these people. I know these people. They teach me Spanish. They teach me things about how to build and work with my animals. They're my friends. And I think it's ridiculous for us to say you can't drive a car. Respectfully, to my colleagues, and I'm going to part ways with a lot of my colleagues on this, it's driving a car. I've driven cars in foreign countries illegally, and I did it because I thought it was ridiculous I couldn't drive a car. I don't know why we want to have an underclass in our society. These are good people. It's the best and brightest from most countries, frankly. We have a modern-day middle passage a lot of these people have to come through. They're the best and brightest that have come here. We need to fix our immigration policy in this country, but our response to a broken federal immigration system should not be to deny families and friends and workers the ability to drive a car. They're going to have to deal with their legal problems at some point, but I don't want an underclass here. And so I'm going to support this bill, and I think we should all do the same.
Thank you. Representative Alzate, please, for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to stress the fact that when we are talking about undocumented people, we're not only talking about people who come here, quote unquote, illegally. We're talking about people who come here for political asylum. My family is from Colombia. Plenty of political asylum, and a lot of my family members came over that way because of our country's turmoil, political turmoil. That people who come over legally that way, they're not eligible to go to the DMV and obtain a driver's license because they're here legally. Again, people who come over on work visas, even if you have a tourist visa, you can't obtain that. Some people overstay their visas and they stay here and they don't have status, but they came here legally. So this is not an issue of undocumented people that come over the border. We live in Rhode Island, like the border is not close to us. But this is an issue of how are we going to help people who are already here, who are already working, who want to be here, who are taxpayers. Let's not forget, they're taxpayers. They have a tax ID. In order for you to obtain one of these permits, these privilege cards, you have to have a tax ID. So this, to me, I wish we could give it to everybody that's undocumented, tax ID or not. But this is a good compromise. This is a step in the right direction. These are the people who work extremely hard that we see every day. There has been people elected to this House who have been here at one point or another, whether it was political asylum or undocumented. The road to citizenship is expensive and it is extremely hard. And it gets even more expensive when you are an adult and you have a family that you need to take care of here and in your country. So to make their lives just a little bit easier so that they can obtain legal status is a little speck in the sand. This legislation is the right legislation. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Phillips, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not going to be emotional about this issue, although it is emotional for a lot of the members, and I appreciate that. I'm just going to bring up two scenarios that was brought to me by constituents over the last 3 to 4 weeks. First scenario is the fact that is there a provision in this law that or legislation we're passing that makes it sure that these people know how to drive a vehicle? If they do, they have a foreign license. Then they have had training and they've driven cars in the past. I'm not sure. Maybe somebody from the country that I come from came here illegally, never had a license in that country, and just applies for a driving privilege. I'm not sure. So I just want to, if somebody can answer that question after I sit down, that would be fine. The second scenario that was brought to me about 2 weeks ago was the fact of our Board of Canvassers, you have to show a license or ID card to register to vote. If these are identical to a license or an ID card, they can register to vote and get a mail ballot. You don't have to show a license or anything else for a mail ballot. Don't have to have a reason for it. So these are some concerns that my constituency in my district has brought forward, and I don't have the answers for them. Thank you.
The last light. Chairwoman Williams.
Thank you. 13 years. And I often stand in this room and I say to you folks, come along and take a ride with me on this fantastic voyage. Some of you have graced the invitation and have chosen to open your mind and heart to not only listen to what is being said to you, but hear what's being said to you. I often say one size does not fit all. You're comfortable in your own circle, in your own space, with your own people. But there are many people, many of you will remember your father, your uncle, your mother, your aunt, fighting about the Italians got it going on, and them Guineas, those Irish. That was a huge thing. It was huge. Did I say something wrong? I said the word? Hey, I'm using the word that has been used. I'm not sugarcoating anything. I'm not disrespecting anyone, but you know you use it on us too. Because it's been said, illegal aliens, undocumented individuals, what do they look like? Do they have a specific look to them so that you can identify that they are illegal? No. They are your neighbors, your friends, your employees, because many of them are working in your business. They are in your business and you know that they're undocumented, but they're excellent workers. And they come on time and they come every day and they are loyal and committed. They're taxpayers. They're putting in the coffers and carrying the heaviest burden in the state of Rhode Island. Believe it because it's true. The opportunity of being able, you call it a privilege, to be able to go to and from work, to be able to go to the market, pick up your children, take your children, just to be a productive person in society. Folks are standing up here and talking about, what? Really? Rhode Island is one of the most diverse states in the Union. The smallest, but the most diverse. We've opened up the doors for refugees, Afghanistans, Ukrainians. They don't know our laws, but we have welcomed them in, and how are they going to get around? They are too, along with many others, have the right of this opportunity. Bigotry, hate, and racism tends to cloud people's mind if it doesn't relate to their immediate circle, and it's shameful. Our diversity binds us more together than apart. And we need to embrace that opportunity because of the fact that our sisters, our neighbors, our brothers, and our friends, undocumented, are here in the state of Rhode Island to stay. Getting citizenship is not like going to the corner store or the mall and applying for a credit card. We are talking about business plans or applications that are as long as I am tall in the state of Rhode Island for legal individuals. So imagine an individual from a foreign country,
1 minute, please.
the hardship that they're faced with. The bill, this bill, el tiempo de este bill llegó y la gracia, el triunfo es de Dios. Let me just say, before you kick me off, Eduardo Sandoval, I wish he was still here because he was a community organizer with regards to this opportunity of getting driver's license. He would pack this place with over 200 people each time. Even on his deathbed, he was calling in, testifying to please allow us to get driver's license. He passed away, but he didn't stop fighting in this struggle. Gaspar Espinosa, also another one. But people, you know the deal. One size does not fit all in certain circumstances, but this is an opportunity to say unity in our community because you can't identify who is here legal or illegal, but you can use your moral compass, pull it out, and pass this bill. Make history, make it easy for all of my friends and neighbors that have been waiting for this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And with that, there are no other lights. Clerk, please unlock the machine. All those in favor, please vote green. Any in the negative, please vote red. All members, please vote. Clerk, please lock the machine. There are 54 votes in the affirmative, 15 in the negative. The act prevails. We're going to do the Senate duplicate. I think this is a good time to break for dinner, and then when we come back, we're going to close the gallery for both sides. We're going to close the gallery. We're breaking for dinner. We'll be back in 30 minutes. No. We're going to continue with the calendar where we left off. I believe it was on the duplicate bill. The galleries have been cleared. I have Capitol Police upstairs. We're going to leave the doors open, but they are stationed there not to have any more interruptions. I'm going to ask everybody to remain with decorum. So we will go back. Clerk, please read item 51.
Item 51, Senate 2006, sub A as amended.
Chairman Craven, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill comes to us from Senator Chacon. It is the identical bill that we just dealt with Representative Alzate. I move passage.
Chairman Craven moves passage, seconded by Leader Blazajewski, Chairwoman Williams, and Representative Diaz. On the duplicate bill, we just voted on before the break. Clerk, please unlock the machine. All those in favor, please vote green. Any in the negative, please vote red. Clerk, please lock the machine. There are 51 votes affirmative, 13 in the negative. The act prevails. Next docketed item.